Good morning. Welcome back to month 4 of the Business Startup series with SCORE and Hedberg Public Library. Today we continue the topic of sales and marketing with emphasis on the marketing. We are excited to have two small business owners, Catherine Wondrow of the Digital Ring and Sarah Hurley of Weber Marketing, to present to you today. They have slides prepared with time for questions at the end. Also present today is Ken Wondrow from SCORE, and he can answer any questions about homework from the previous session at the end of the presentation today as well. Thank you for keeping your cameras and microphones in the off position during their presentation, but feel free to unmute and ask questions at the end, or use the chat feature if you'd like. So with that, I will hand it over now to Catherine and Sarah. Thank you for being here.
Great, thank you so much, Kara, for the introduction. So as she mentioned, today we're going to talk about how to move your marketing forward. Before we get too far in here, I think Sarah and I can just do some introductions, let you know who we are and our background, so you have that context as we're going through some of our information today. So with that being said, I'll kick it off first. As Kara said, my name is Catherine Wondrow. I'm actually not a small business owner, but I am the VP of Accounts at the Digital Ring. So we're a full service marketing agency here in Madison. We're over on the west side. One of the things that we really pride ourselves in at the Digital Ring is being a business-minded marketing agency. For us, we really want to make sure that we understand the full scope of your business goals, your needs, your clients, your target audience, so that we can deliver results that are going to impact your entire bottom line at the end of the day. We also do offer everything that you might need under one roof. So for us, we try and make sure that you can avoid that sort of herding cats feeling of working with multiple vendors. We're a full service marketing agency, which means that we have just about everything in-house. So we offer strategic planning, branding, creative development, web development and design, social media. All of that is included within our team at the Digital Ring. So super excited to be speaking with you all today. And with that, I will kick it over to Sarah.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sarah Hurley, and I am the owner of Weber Marketing, which is a small, I call myself a marketing director for clients. So I help support small businesses and medium-sized businesses with their marketing direction. So I often, what I hear from clients is they're stuck, they're stalled, they're not quite sure which direction or where to go with their marketing efforts. And that's usually a trigger sentence that I hear where I can provide value. So my company, Weber Marketing, focuses on marketing direction. We're a contract resource. I help with marketing planning and creative execution. Event planning and execution are also a sweet spot and have been for my 20-year career. And I also do public speaking on marketing best practices. So my background is the first 10 years of my profession was split between working at an advertising agency here in Madison, and I was the account executive there. So my job was to be the liaison or the center point between clients and the rest of the agency. So I often had to interpret and understand my clients' needs, their business, their budget, their timeline, and then interpret that and lead our creative department. The last 10 years, or actually 11 years, I've been the owner of a small business, Weber Marketing, and I do a very similar function there and instead of having an agency in my back pocket, I'm an employee of one, and instead I contract out. So kind of the opposite of what Catherine was talking about. I don't have the employees behind me, but I help my clients herd the cats. Either I can do it for you, or I can help you select the right vendors to work for. I think that's it. So I'm excited to be here, and I am a small business owner, and so is my husband. So I have lots of small business experience, and I'm definitely planning to share some of that experience with you all this morning. So what Catherine and I thought would be fun to kick this off with is, in our careers, we often hear some of the same lines, myths about marketing. So we thought we would start off this morning with sort of debunking some of these marketing myths, especially for small business owners. You have a lot of ideas and you want to get going and there's a lot of energy, but there's some challenges that we know are facing you, and you think things about marketing. And so we just want to spend a little time getting real with you guys this morning.
All right, so we can start with our marketing myth number 1, and that is marketing is easy. I can do this myself. And we don't want to scare you away from marketing by any means, but it has become a very broad industry that encompasses so many different specialties. We've got paid digital advertising now. We have web design and development. There's branding. There's strategic planning. There's still traditional marketing. And so because of that, we find a lot of clients will end up just dabbling in a few of the ones that feel most comfortable to them, and then maybe missing the mark. So our marketing myth that we want to debunk here is that while others still feel like marketing is a softer industry, there are a lot of technical skills involved that can be difficult to master and to do well within a smaller budget like you might have as a small business. So we always encourage others to approach marketing just like they would any other specialty, like HR or sales, and to make sure that you seek the right resources, information to do it correctly, to do it properly.
Number 2, my logo is my brand. So I'll get a request. I'm a new business and I need to create my brand. And can you help me design my logo? Your logo is a part of your brand, but believe it or not, you represent your brand as well. So brand means the whole part of everything that you have to offer. It is your logo. It is your website. It is your type font. It is the color palette that you choose to use on your website and your marketing material. But it also extends into your customer service, the way you present yourself out in the marketplace and even in your personal career or personal environment. So brand is more than just your logo. It is usually where people start, and that's fine. But no, brand means whole, not one specific thing within your marketing mix. So it's really important in this slide too. I just wanted to say, beyond brand, it's important to understand definitions within marketing. So if you think one thing, just Google brand or Google a term that you're hearing, digital marketing, and really understand what that means to not only you, but then when you're reaching out to work with other vendors.
Awesome. And then this one is one we hear so often. My brother's wife's cousin, my best friend's neighbor's daughter. You insert the relation here, can build my website for me. And I think back, 5-10 years ago, that may have been the case, but websites have become so much more complex with the way that Google sets up its algorithm to determine whether or not you're going to show up when someone Googles a keyword. There's a lot more complexity behind website builds and doing it properly. So we always encourage others to take their website really seriously. For most of you, especially during this pandemic in the last year, that now is your new storefront. Your website is how you're presenting your brand, your business, your product, your services to your target audience. So making sure that you really put your best foot forward and that you take your website seriously and really consider how to position your brand and your products and your services to your audience in a way that's going to be compelling and exciting for them. And of course, there's a lot of resources out there. So this doesn't necessarily have to mean that finding someone who is an expert has to cost you a ton of money. But we do encourage you to kind of take that part seriously and make sure you really do invest in the website as you should. All right, our next marketing myth is SEO is a one-time thing. So SEO, note that term. That might be one that, like Sarah just mentioned, you want to Google, but it stands for search engine optimization. We get a lot of questions around this as marketers, especially lately with the way that Google's algorithms have been changing. But basically, when you search for a keyword, let's say your product is to sell clothing here in Madison area. When someone goes to search for clothing or beautiful dresses, they are searching and there's going to be results that Google spits out for them. That is all based on search engine optimization. So when we talk about SEO with our clients, we're talking about ways that they can develop a long-term strategy that's going to help them organically, aka without spending for ads, organically rank higher within Google's search results. And many people think, okay, just set up my SEO for me so that I show up. And really what we want to communicate is that this is a long-term strategy. This is something that needs to be maintained and managed month over month, year over year. So we encourage people to really think about SEO as a long-term investment. It's something that they're going to just have to work into their marketing bread and butter, and to invest in that accordingly.
Vendors or agencies are a set it and forget it relationship. This kind of goes along what Catherine was talking about of SEO. SEO is not a set it and forget it thing, nor are your relationships with your vendors, whether that be your print vendor, your media vendor, your website vendor, or if you're working with an agency, whether it be someone like myself or with Catherine's group or another agency. You get out of those relationships what you put in them. The more time and information you can share with your partners, the better. When I start working with clients, they're like, well, my media is over here. I do radio over here. I do my website over here. My print vendor's over here. And then I dabble in some local print paper. That's great. And there's a fear of bringing those people together to share with them what your overall plan is or what your goals are so that they can work off of each other. If you can't find vendors, or if you're not working with vendors or partners that can't play in the same sandbox with each other, then I suggest you maybe look elsewhere. Catherine and I are, competitors, but we both know that if we were working with a client on projects, we're going to be able to offer more to that client if we work together. You, as the client small business owner, control that relationship. So the more that you bring your partners together and set them up for success, the better off your results are going to do. And I often, with small business owners, share with them if I'm working with them, but you can do this yourself, but create a template or an overview of what your project is, what your goal is, what your timeline is, what is it that you want your audience to walk away with, and share that document with your vendors so everybody has the same marching orders. And it's really helpful if you get an Excel spreadsheet out, or a good old fashioned regular calendar, desktop calendar, and write out for the month, the year, whatever your activities are. If you're a seasonal business, if you have an end of year sale that you want to do, and share that marketing calendar with your partners so they again have more information to work with. So they really truly are better together. So make sure that you're working with partners that can play in the sandbox together, and your marketing results will only benefit from it. So this one, I think Catherine and I both have some good talking points. So great creative equals great marketing. I have heard this for 21 years. If I hire the best agency, or if I hire the best graphic designer, my marketing is going to automatically be great. Unfortunately, this is not true. This kind of goes back to the slide that I was just talking to. If you don't set your vendors, your creative partners up for success by feeding them information of your wants, your needs, your goals, if you don't like the color purple, you need to make sure that you're telling them you don't like the color purple on the front side, not on the end side. That is going to be more meaningful and result in great marketing for you. So my mantra at Weber Marketing is, if you want something out of marketing, you have to be willing to invest in marketing. And that means your time. I was just talking to a small business owner that has an Etsy shop. And even last year in 2020, it exploded for her. And I said, what was it? And she said, I spend 30% of my time on marketing, not investment, but 30% of her time is spent on her marketing efforts. And she doesn't have a marketing background. Marketing is scary to her, but she recognizes that she has to invest her time in marketing, and that results in great marketing.
Yeah, and I think just going off of that, the part that we often see is that someone will feel so confident in the creative that they put forward, the ads that they've placed in a magazine, in a newspaper, whatever it may be, that they forget to actually test it and to see how it does perform at the end of the day. So for us, we really look at that data analysis period as just as important as the actual setup part. So when you create and you put all this energy, you put 30% of your time into developing all those ads, you also want to make sure that you're splitting your time to then test how that's performing and really look at, is this worth the money? Am I getting my return on investment for this particular piece of advertising? We're shocked to find sometimes that we think we've developed the best campaign ever. It's gonna make the mark, and then who knows? Maybe something happens in the news, or the market slightly shifts, or audiences' needs change, and that marketing just falls a little bit flatter than we were hoping. And by looking at the data, by seeing that and understanding that trend, we can then pivot and say, okay, well, let's try it again. Let's see what we learned from that, and let's do something that does work. But I think it's important to understand that it is a changing, moving thing, and you have to be agile with your marketing. You have to be able to review it, see what's working, and adjust if it isn't working. And that's really key to keeping your budget down and maximizing those results as a small business.
And our last marketing myth is the cheaper, the better. We hear that a lot. I'm just going to get some quotes and go with the cheapest price. Or outsourcing is more expensive, so I'm just going to try to take this all on myself. Cheaper is not better. You really need to understand if you're going out for, like what we talked about, if you're going to go out for an SEO estimate, and you kind of heard what Catherine said and you're like, yeah, I need better search results, but I don't really know what that means. Understand SEO enough so that when you're going out and getting those 3 estimates, you're able to compare apples to apples and understand what that vendor or that estimate is really saying to you. So really understand what your ask is before you ask. And that will help you understand the estimates that you're getting back and have those conversations. And outsourcing isn't necessarily more expensive. Yes, it's a cost that you are going to have to pay for. But number one, what's your time worth? Is it really your area of expertise? And is there somebody out there that can do it better and more efficiently than you could on your own? As small business owners, we wear many hats. We have every responsibility falls on our shoulders. At some point, we have to get help somewhere. For me, it's taxes and my accounting, right? I'm not an expert in that, so I have to pay for somebody to do that for me because it's not my area of expertise. Do I grumble at that bill every month? Yes, but I know it's more efficient use of my time. Same thing with marketing. As Catherine was talking about testing, if that was like, yeah, I get the concept, but I don't have any idea how to do that, that might be something that you want to reach out and find out what's involved with that. How does that project go? What's the timeline around it? What's the cost involved? It just is really important to stop thinking of marketing as sort of this brush off thing, or yeah, I'll get to it when I can, or have your brother's cousin's wife do it for you. Really own your marketing, understand what it is, the path that you're trying to go down, and then don't be afraid to outsource it to make it better than you could do it on your own. I think that was it for the marketing myths. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just adding to that, Sarah, too, one thing that we find is when people are in a position with their small business where they are ready to start hiring team members to help them out, we often find that someone will want to hire one marketing person who they expect to be knowledgeable in every single service area. And what we find is that sometimes outsourcing, working with a vendor, an agency, or an individual like Sarah can be more affordable because you're hiring somebody who then can divvy up those funds and distribute them to people who are experts in each industry. So you might pay the same as you would a part-time or a full-time employee, but you're getting expert opinion in every topic area. And what's more, you don't have to deal with the overhead of having to train that person, having the risk of whether or not they might be an employee that sticks with you, having to incur some of those healthcare costs, all the other things that come with managing a larger team. So sometimes that can be a smart growth move when you are trying to spend a little bit more on marketing, but you aren't ready to hire multiple people on your team.
Yeah.
Awesome. So as Sarah said, we'll move on, but really wanted to highlight some of the most commonly asked questions that we hear about and spend a little bit more time on each of those. So we're going to talk today about how do we figure out what to focus our marketing efforts on. We're also going to discuss what the most important marketing strategy is right now in the market, considering what's going on in our little universe here. And then the last thing we'll talk about is what I'm sure every small business owner is trying to consider right now, and that is, how do I budget for marketing? What is an appropriate spend considering where my business is at? So with that, I'll pass it over to Sarah.
Yep. So I'm going to focus on, so we talked about all these myths and things like that, and making sure that you have your focus and setting yourself and your partners up. So how do you figure out what to focus your marketing efforts on? So we'll go to the next slide. And you heard me say this already. So really, as a small business owner, I could not stamp this into your brain more. If you want something out of marketing, you need to invest your time in marketing. Yes, you need a financial investment into marketing, but really, as a small business owner, it's your time that's going to make the greatest impact on your marketing efforts. So I'm going to walk you through what I do with my small business clients on helping them get focused with their marketing efforts. Next slide. So the first thing I do is I say, let's define our focus. Okay, so what is it that you want to focus your marketing efforts on? And I get a whole slew of responses from everybody, and that's great. If you can go to the next slide. One of the things that I walk through my business or my clients with is I have them define their business overview, their business goals, their target audience, their product and service, their competitive advantage, and their marketing budget. So these are pretty basic, pretty general. I'm sure you've heard this in other places. And the responses that I typically get, if you can go to the next slide, are I typically get things like business goals of drive sales, right? Who is my target audience? Well, anyone and everyone that will buy from us. What product or service do you want to focus your marketing efforts on? All of them. Competitive advantage. We're the best in the area with 30 years of experience. Marketing budget. Not sure. Can you get me an estimate? This is pretty typical. I hear this a lot, and this isn't wrong. This is a good starting point. But today, what I'd like to focus you on is, if you go to the next slide, is push yourself or your team to get specific. The slide before was pretty generic. So I try to have people get specific. So if you're talking about your business goals, your typical business goals I hear are drive sales, get more customers, increase profitability. Not wrong, but if we go to the next slide, those aren't wrong, but if you dig a little deeper and say drive sales in what part of your business are you specifically wanting to focus your marketing effort on? You don't have the time or the budget to focus on everything. So you're going to have to get specific and make a decision of where you want to focus. Is it a new product line? Is it a product line or service that's not doing well? Is there a seasonality to it? Get more customers. Where? In the Madison area or the Milwaukee area? Or do you have a different demographic that you want to go after? Increase profitability. How? In what part of your business can you get more specific? If you can go to the next slide. The more specific we can get, even with your target, so a sort of generic target description, women, income of 150 or above, educated. Again, if you push yourself, next slide, please. If you push yourself to dig a little deeper and get specific with your target audience, this not only helps you, but it helps those partners that we talked about, your vendors, your creative partners, your agencies that you're working with. And what I tell my clients is, when you're thinking about your target, and you're thinking outside prospect new customers, it's helpful to think about a current client. Put a visual in your head of somebody that you're currently working with, or you think you would like to work with, that it defines your target audience, and define that person. So give that person a name. Julie, she's 45. She's a former client. She has been in her home for 20 years, and she feels overwhelmed and nervous about interviewing contractors and making the wrong decision. So I use this. My husband is a home improvement company, small business. So I was using Julie as a definition of where he wants to focus his marketing efforts. So it helps, though, for you if you just think about and give your target a name and get a little bit more specific with who that is and who you're trying to go after. Next slide, please. So again, go from generic, drive sales, everyone, all, if you can go to the next slide, and get more specific with your business overview. So when you're talking about your business goals, drive what in what part of your business and give it a timeline. Target audience, we just talked about Julie, get more specific with your target audience description. Product and service focus, don't say all, you don't have the time or the budget necessarily to give to all of it. So where is it specifically that you want to focus your time and your energy? Competitive advantage, the 30 years of experience is great, and I hear that a lot, but what does that mean to your prospects and your audience? And marketing budget. A lot of small businesses are afraid to put a dollar amount to a marketing budget. You have to. You have to be able to put some sort of where your threshold is of what you're willing to spend on marketing. Next slide, please. So we talked about how do you figure out what to focus your marketing on. We talked about you define your focus. We talked about how you name your target, and don't assume. Next slide. So next, don't assume people know that you do kitchen and bathroom remodeling. Again, I'm going back to my example of my husband's small home improvement business. He started on exteriors, siding, windows, gutters, doors, but slowly over his 30-year career, he started transitioning indoor and started doing interior remodeling, but he didn't do anything of letting people know that, the marketplace, former clients, nothing. So don't assume people know what product or service you are offering unless you're marketing it. They don't know. They don't wake up thinking, boy, I'm going to go out and find company XYZ that offers this product or service that I'm looking for, right? You need to put your product or service in front of their face. So don't assume everybody knows what it is that you're trying to offer. Next slide, please. And with that, I'll pass it over.
Wonderful, thank you. I love that. I think that's a great segue into what I hope to talk about. You really have to have that foundation that Sarah just talked about sorted out before you can even begin to think about what tactics do I want to put in place? What's my marketing strategy? First, you need to really understand your business goals. So I love that. But anyhow, I wanted to talk about what the most important marketing strategy is right now. We get that question a lot. What's trending? What should I focus on? What's the one that's going to give me the biggest ROI? And at Digital Ring, for us, we really do feel like it is digital marketing strategy. And I think that's because of the world that we live in, but it's only been heightened in the last year when everyone's really been much more confined to their home, when everything has moved to a much more virtual space. So when we talk about digital marketing strategy, we're talking about Google ads, whether that be what we talked about earlier with SEO and showing up organically, or actually paying for ads. We're talking about Facebook, we're talking about Instagram. We're even talking about some of the younger, newer ones like Snapchat and TikTok, Reddit even. But all of these things are really all encompassing when we talk about the different marketing tactics that can be included in a digital marketing strategy. So just getting a little bit deeper and understanding what a digital marketing strategy is. For us, it's really creating this sort of seamless customer journey that's going to help push your client, your customer, further and further down into the sales funnel so that you can get them to convert. You can get them to make that purchase or to sign up for a quote or whatever it might be based on your specific business model. For us, we like to think of the sales funnel in a few different ways. You might see the traditional way of, awareness, consideration, evaluation. But from a digital marketing perspective, we like to categorize the sales funnel a little bit differently because it helps us understand what digital marketing tactics fall under each phase of that. So up at the top here, you can see that I've got introducer as the top of the marketing funnel. So this is looking at digital marketing strategies or tactics that are going to introduce people to your product for the first time. So up top here, you can see things like email marketing. You can also see display prospecting. So this might be, display ads are the ones that you might see when you're on CNN.com or Huffington Post. Those are the little visual ads that'll pop up in the corner that have some imagery and text on them. You might also consider CTV or OTT video ads. This is really referring to some of the streaming services. So video or the video ads that show up when you're watching Hulu with your family at home, or maybe you're on Peacock or something like that. I know Hulu is one of those that can be a great option for small businesses. They actually just came out recently with a new option that allows you to spend as little as $500 a month to place visual ads on Hulu for consumers to see. Then we get a little bit further down in the funnel. And this is really the influencer phase. So these are some of the digital marketing tactics that can help you influence a buyer, influence a potential customer to get them to consider your product and making that purchase. Now, unlike the introducer phase, the influencer phase is catching people not just basically by their demographics or by some of their psychographics, but it's catching people based on some sort of intent, some intent to buy that they have shown online that helps us understand that they're a little bit further down in the process. So what I mean by that is, looking at some potential digital marketing strategies like SEO, the one that we had talked about earlier. So if someone is searching for a home cleaning service or a contractor, to use Sarah's last example, they might Google contractors in Madison. And that tells us that these people are a little bit further down in the funnel because they're actually already considering the solution that you're offering as a business. So this is the point where you're trying to hit them with your solution and say, choose me because I'm the best for maybe that competitive advantage that Sarah helped you identify in the last slides. We also have non-brand search. So these would be, terms that you could bid on like contractor. So you can actually spend money instead of just trying to show up organically for some of these Google search terms. Then we get a little bit further down into the funnel. So these are marketing tactics that are going to help you actually, follow people around once they've shown interest in your specific product and basically remind them of your product until they finally convert, until they finally make a purchase online, until they finally provide you their contact information on the website that you might have a lead capture form on. So some of these tactics that we look at are retargeting. So this is an opportunity where you can set up your website to follow folks around with ads after they visited your website. I know we've all gone to Amazon Prime, put something in our cart, left, gone to another site, and then all of a sudden you're seeing those ads follow you for the alarm clock that you were just searching for in Prime. This is what retargeting is. A little bit further down in the funnel, we also think about bidding on brand search. So this might be bidding on and actually spending money on Google to show up for your specific company's name. So maybe you are Madison Contracting and that's the name of your business. You may want to bid on that specific term. So if anyone is Googling your business and looking specifically for you, you can really guarantee that you're showing up and that there's no chance that they won't then make it to your website and take that next step. There's also something called offer retargeting. So this is where you may want to actually provide somebody with an offer to really incentivize them to close the deal. So again, using that online shopping example, maybe you had found a sweater on Target and you put it in your cart, you never checked out. 2 days later, Target sends you an email and says, hey, we're going to now give you 10% off this sweater if you purchase within the next 5 hours. This can be really effective at just making the purchase come a little bit faster, incentivizing your customer to finally take action on your product, your offer. And then lastly, we have organic social media. And you'll notice that I didn't actually put this up at the top where a lot of people think it belongs. I put this down at the bottom in the section that we call the retainer. So this is when we're trying to talk to customers who have already engaged with your business in some way. Maybe they have already gone with you for a home project if you're that contractor here in the Madison area. Maybe they have already visited your storefront and made a purchase from you. These are the customers that you can put a little bit less work into because they already know about your brand. You don't have to do all of that work that you see prior in the funnel. What you need to do at this point is remind them of your brand, show them about other products that you offer, introduce them to other services that might be of interest to them. And this is where organic social media can be a huge help. Organic social media is typically, without spending money on it, you're really going to be exposed to people who are already following your page, which is why it really makes sense for this last phase of the funnel. Now, the other thing that you might notice about this funnel that I put here is over on the right side, you'll see email marketing is at just about every single phase of that funnel. And that's really intentional. I think email marketing, especially for small businesses that have a really limited marketing budget, email marketing can be such a great resource to use. You can purchase lists in order to show up at that introducer phase, in order to reach new people that have never heard about your brand before. You can take existing lists of leads that you've collected over the last few months for your small business, and you can send emails out to them to let them know about new offers. You can follow people around. If you have their contact information and they just haven't quite made a purchase yet, you can send emails to incentivize them to finally take action. And then lastly, you can create an email that reaches out to your current customers and tries to create more loyalty, tries to keep them engaged with your brand and your business so that they're coming back and making repeat purchases from you. So really, when we think about digital marketing, it's not one single thing. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that my digital marketing strategy is that I'm going to post on Facebook. When in reality, you have this whole variety of tools to you, and tools that truly might seem intimidating, but for a small business are well within reach from a budget and from an execution perspective. A lot of these things that can really help you move the needle. So you might be asking, why is it important? I know I started to really lead into that, but when we look at comparing digital marketing to traditional marketing, and when I say traditional marketing, I'm talking about buying TV commercials that run on standard cable, or purchasing radio ads, or buying a billboard to go on the Beltline, or paying for an ad that might run in Bravo magazine or in Business magazine. Really, when we talk about all of those tactics that we saw in the last slide, in comparison to some of these traditional marketing options, digital marketing is often less expensive. You can often reach a larger group of people for less money. It also can often drive higher ROI, and the reason being that you get much more opportunities for customized messaging and more specific, precise targeting. As you can imagine, if you pay for a radio ad or you pay for an ad within Bravo magazine, you can't necessarily control who sees that. It could be a broad variety of people, and that variety of people may not all be interested in your product that you're offering. Whereas with digital marketing, a lot of those tactics that we talked about in the last slide, you can not only target people by their specific demographic, so maybe age, income, geography, location, gender, marital status, but you can also target them by their psychographics. So you can target them based on some of the interests that they have in online. You can target them based on where they might be at in considering a car purchase, or considering to buy a home, or considering a home remodel. So really, you have much more precision, which ultimately for a small business means that you have less wasted spend. You can make sure that every dollar you spend is really going to reach the right people. And then, like I said, that can also then lead to customized messaging. If you know exactly who you're talking to with this ad, you can be so much more precise and specific and push a specific product or a specific service directly to that group of people. And then lastly, it's going to yield a lot more analytics for you. So as a small business, you need to be maximizing your learnings. You need to be learning every single day, week, month, about what's going on with your product in the market. And when you're doing traditional marketing, you may pay for that ad in business or that ad in the newspaper, and you're not going to have any clue how many people actually saw that ad, took action on that ad, were motivated by that ad. Whereas with digital marketing, you'll know so much more precisely how many people saw it, how many people clicked on it, how many people then went to your website and made a purchase or took an action. You can know more specifically about the audience demographics of the people who interacted with your ads most. So the learning there is almost worth the value in and of itself, because as a small business, it can help you really start to better understand your target audience in a much clearer way. So the last thing I want to talk about here is where to start. It can seem daunting. I'm talking about all of these terms that you might be Googling right here in this moment and trying to learn about. But what I always talk to people about is, once you've done all that work that Sarah introduced you to, and you understand your competitive advantage, you understand your target audience, then what I want you to do is really map out the customer journey that you're trying to create from an online perspective. So the first thing that you want to do is really figure out what your ideal customer behavior is. Do you have a product that can be purchased online? If so, the ideal customer behavior that you want them to take is most likely you want them to add it on cart on your website and you want them to check out and make that purchase. Are you in, let's just go with that contracting example we've been using throughout. Are you a contractor? The ideal customer behavior might be that they pick up the phone and call you, or that they enter in their information on your website and ask you to call them. It might be that they, find your email address on your website and they send you an email, but you really need to figure out what that sort of end goal is from an online perspective that you want every customer to take. Now, once you have that sorted out, then you need to work backwards and you need to map out this customer journey and start to identify what of those marketing tactics is going to push them further and further through that funnel. So you can do it in the way that I have this visual laid out here. It's horizontal. You can also use that sales funnel that I mapped out a few slides before, but really look at what each step of that funnel is going to look like for your customer and think about what marketing tactics you could intersperse within that funnel in order to get them to that retainer phase, in order to get them to that ideal customer behavior. And this is, something that, like I said, it can be daunting, but that's where if you've got resources, webinars that you can watch, things, articles that you can read through online, or better yet, vendors, if you have that budget as a small business, vendors that you can reach out to who are experts in this and can really help you map that out and figure out the best mix of digital marketing strategies. And then lastly, like I said, you really outsourcing is going to be helpful here. If you outsource, they can help you go a layer deeper than you may be able to do individually. They might be able to help you really look at those areas of weakness and say, okay, this part of the funnel, you really don't have any marketing tactics that are helping drive somebody to the next phase. They can help you set priorities. If you have a limited budget, they can say, great, these are the points of the sales funnel that are going to be most important for you to invest marketing dollars in. These are the ones that are just going to happen naturally and organically, and you don't need to spend as much. And then they can make sure that that journey is compelling and customized throughout. Like Sarah said, analytics could be a really daunting thing for you. Maybe you're not somebody who loves to live in the numbers. So by finding a vendor or a partner who can help you look at all that data, analyze it, and take away the key insights, you can really save some of your time and energy for a different area of your business where you can have a greater impact as an individual. And then lastly, like I said, once you have all of those learnings, then it becomes a matter of, as a small business, saying, okay, how do I continue to shrink down the spend that I have while also increasing the impact and the reach and the ROI that I'm getting? That's sort of the ultimate sweet spot that all marketers want to get to, is really finding what the optimized, most ideal budget is in order to get you the most amount of customers. All right, so I'll kick it back to Sarah for us to talk about our question number 3.
Yeah. And just to kind of circle back to all of the things you just said, Catherine, is if I go back to your sort of funnel slide that you had, that sort of illustrates how many different types of skill sets and disciplines there are under the marketing umbrella. And so if you think back to one of the myths that we debunked this morning is marketing is easy. It's not easy, and it takes time. And so that's where you really need to be honest with yourself about what am I capable of taking on myself versus what do I need help with. And there's writers, there's graphic designers, there's social media specialists, there's digital analysts, there's strategists. So there's all different disciplines under the umbrella. So I think your slides did a really good job of illustrating how much work goes on behind the scenes of these initiatives. So our last question is, we get this a lot, how much should we be spending on marketing? You can Google it, right? You can Google what Google spits back at you. I've seen 1 to 5% of sales revenue. I've seen 3 to 5%. I've seen it varies based on industry, how much you should be spending. I threw out the example earlier that somebody I know on Etsy spends 30% of her time on marketing. My biggest thing for small business owners are, and this is sometimes even hard for myself as a small business owner, is you need to stop thinking about marketing as a variable cost or I'll do it later cost. And you need to start thinking about marketing as a fixed cost. You pay your rent, you pay your mortgage, you pay your light bill, you pay your accountant, right? So you have things that are a fixed cost within your budget that you're dealing with already. Make marketing a part of that fixed expense. Even if it's the lowest common denominator of $100 a month, start investing $100 a month somewhere in terms of financial investment on your marketing budget. Because if it's a variable cost or it's different month to month, your spend and your messaging is going to be inconsistent in the marketplace, and that's the worst thing. It's really difficult when I see companies or clients spend a lot of money to do a great digital ad campaign, but then they spend every penny they had and they go dark. They have nothing out in the marketplace for months at end. So that's where working with a professional or really thinking through a 12-month marketing budget. What can I realistically afford to spend on marketing? Sure, you're going to have months where you spend more if you're going to update your website. That's a one-time sort of larger expense. Or if you need to get new photos for professional photos instead of using stock photos, which I highly recommend. Those things will come up. But if you have a lowest common denominator as a fixed cost, you'll see greater results in your marketing return on investments, and momentum is another thing that you'll see influenced by having a fixed marketing budget.
And I think the thing that I would add to that is, I keep saying it throughout, but look at the data as much as you possibly can. Look at that data too, because you're going to want to be as efficient as possible. And we find a lot of people, when they're starting up a small business, they'll pay for a subscription service to this online platform. They'll spend regularly in this ad here, and they keep all of a sudden divvying up their marketing budget without really realizing where all of that money is going. And I think that can be dangerous, because before you know it, you've gotten accustomed to spending on these things without ever actually checking back and saying, are these yielding results for me as a business? Is this worth my money? And with the way and the rate at which marketing is changing and how quickly the industry is evolving on a weekly, monthly basis, really you have to stay on top of some of those marketing expenses and make sure that they're actually doing the work that they should be doing for you. Because oftentimes you may find that, hey, look, this has gone stale and I need to stop spending money on this, and I need to move that money somewhere else where it's going to do more for me. But really, I think it's so easy to all of a sudden divvy those funds up and have a lot of unrecognized wasted spend within your marketing budget. So make sure you stay on top of that by looking at the data and really sticking with it to be sure that you're spending correctly.
Yeah, and to piggy off of that, you mentioned you sign up for this subscription or this platform. Don't sign up for the subscription or platform unless you are planning to fully invest your time in maximizing that investment. So if you're thinking email marketing and constant contact, don't just sign up for constant contact because you think that's the box to check. Really understand the platform and understand how much time you are going to have to invest in it to maximize that investment. If you're going to invest in email marketing, don't just check the box, but really commit to that tactic and make sure you're maximizing it. Even sponsorships, that's a big thing for small businesses. You're going to sponsor this event, this event. What more can you be doing to maximize that sponsorship? Is the company or organization putting a newsletter out? Have they guaranteed you a Facebook post? Are they going to be putting you on their website or on their website? So really think through the investments you're making. Don't just check the box, but think it through and make sure you're maximizing that investment. And the other thing of what Catherine was talking about is, I wanted to say is, don't feel like you need to do everything. In small business marketing world, there's a sort of panic of, I got to be here, I got to be here, I got to do this, I got to do this. You don't. Take care of the basics and make sure your website is up and running. Make sure you have a digital strategy, which your website is a part of that digital strategy. Make sure your brand is intact and you're providing a good customer service. If you just take care of those two fundamental things, which is a lot, there's a lot behind the scenes that go on your brand and a digital strategy, stay there and own it. Don't feel like you have to be in digital, in billboard, in radio, and all these things. Just pick a lane, stick with it, and be good at it, and you'll feel better. You'll have less anxiety, and you'll have more results that come from it.
I love that advice. Well, Sarah,
I think that's it. So I think our last slide is our contact information. You're welcome to reach out to either one of us. You're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I do ask that you just send me a note that this is where you saw it so that I know who you are, and I'll accept your request. But thank you, everyone, for your time this morning. Thanks for the invite. And I think, Catherine, we're going to open it up to questions now. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so that we are all plugged back in. But yes, love to take any questions anyone might have.
Thank you so much, you guys. That was so much information. I thought I wouldn't come up with any questions, but I have. But I want to make sure I don't hog it. Does anyone else who's on here have any questions?
I do. I have one from my experience of having to work with the client who's sitting down. My area of expertise is not marketing. The marketing I know comes from people like you that have been on webinars with me. But what I'm asked is, how, where in the priority list do you put a quality web page? Is that where I start, or am I laying out my plan first? And just kind of curious, if I get hit with that one question, what do I tell them?
I mean, for me, it's the amount of energy and resources you spend on it are going to vary depending on your business model. But I will say you have to, in this day and age, you have to have a legitimate website. It's just the first thing that people do is they're going to Google you. They're going to look it up and make sure that your brand is legitimate, that they can trust you. That's going to be their first introduction to you. It used to be whoever's on the other end, your receptionist when they call, and now it's really your website. The caveat I would put to that is we find a lot of people will dive right in and they'll design their website before they really even have their business plan finalized. And that's where I go back to what Sarah presented and say, before you do your website, you need to really understand your target audience, the products that you're offering, your competitive advantage, because all of that should dictate the way that you design that website. And it should be reflected on that website. And you should really be speaking to that target audience that you've identified. And then the last thing I'll say is, again, if you're selling a product that can be sold online via e-commerce, your website becomes that much more important, because that entire experience is probably the only experience that customers are going to have with your brand. If you're in more of a service-based industry where what you're using your website for is to collect leads so that you can then follow up in person and provide that service in person, it's still important, but it's going to serve a slightly different function. So I think just making sure that you understand those things, and then yes, website is very, very important.
Yeah, I would agree. I will never put anything over planning. You have to start with planning and setting down and just thinking about, what are my goals? What's my business goals? What's that customer experience? And even if you just sit with a piece of paper, I'm a big pen and paper. I have 2 whiteboards behind me. Like I doodle this stuff. I think through the customer experience of somebody that doesn't know me at all. And what's the process I want? What are the steps that I want them to take? And what's my message? All of that planning feeds into your website. It feeds in. So SEO, we talked about it earlier, search engine optimization. That's connecting your website to search engines. So if you haven't thought through and done proper planning of what is the keywords, what is the purpose of my website, you're never going to connect that back over to the SEO. And SEO isn't so much, it is the public view of your website, but I always say if you pick up the hood of your website, SEO really has to do with the underneath the hood of your website, and that's where specialists come into play. And it's really important that they dive into how you're going to connect those two things together. So planning first, I would say, but website is massively important right now, moving forward, and that's not going away. I don't care what happens with, or I care what happens with COVID, but you know what I mean? Like, it's the purpose of your website, that relevancy is not going away.
Thanks.
Sarah and Catherine, I'm wondering, are there any instances where a business is just getting started, so maybe there aren't a lot of funds for, creating a website, and maybe the business owner doesn't feel like they can even begin to try to tackle starting a website on their own? Are there any instances where just getting by with like social media, having a Facebook page for your business, being active on social media, is that ever okay, or do you almost always need a good website today?
So think about what I just talked about. Walk through that customer experience of that person seeing your Facebook post and they're interested in what you have to say. What do they do next, right? So you have to think about what mindset everybody is in right now. We're in a click world, right? So if you do a really good job of pulling me into your Facebook event and I want to find out more information, what do I do and what am I more likely to do? Do I want to click through and find out more, or am I really going to pick up the phone and call you, right? So we've sort of developed this habit now for people, expectation that there is a website. I would say if you absolutely just are terrified of a website and you can't do it, I would look for opportunities where you can have some sort of web presence someplace else, whether that be your Chamber of Commerce or the event website, or something else. But I would say, you have to have some sort of web presence there because you want them to take an action, and they can't take an action necessarily on Facebook.
And the example that I always like to use that I think a lot of us have felt during COVID is you're trying to order from a restaurant online. This is what we find so often. So many restaurants do not have websites. And you end up, when you Google search them because you drove past it and you heard a friend tell you about how amazing it is, you Google search their restaurant and all you can find is a Facebook page. And then you get to that Facebook page and it's not clear what their hours are. You can't find a good phone number. You have no idea what their online menu is. And by this point, I've decided it's not worth the effort and I pick a different website. I pick a different restaurant to go to. So, I think that is such a common experience. People get frustrated and they'll go with a competitor that already has a website. And I would say, again, if you're intimidated by a website and you're not selling something online, you just need a location for people to learn a little bit more, you can still throw up a one-page website. And we've done that for a lot of clients that are small businesses that are just starting. Literally one single page that just has enough information. It looks clean, it looks professional. That can get you through until you are ready to spend a little bit more money. And then the last thing I'll say is the one single exception that I can think of in my mind is if you are selling products on Etsy. There are a lot of small business owners that are capable of putting up a complete shop on Etsy with literally nothing else. They're getting all of their customers that way. But that goes back to what Sarah said. They still have some sort of online presence, and it's through through Etsy. That's sort of their web storefront. But yeah, that would be, I'm very much in line with what Sarah said. So
yeah. And not to take away from Catherine's world, but if this person is really just doesn't have the funds, Wix is a great platform to build a single page website. They have templates available. They'll help you buy the URL, the website address, all of that stuff. So I've really liked Wix. I think that's actually what I built my site off of or had help with. But that would be where I would direct somebody to look into it more.
Is that Wix, Sarah?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I assume it's probably Wix.com or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's other ones. There's Weebly and things like, and I don't know Weebly, Weebly. And again, I'm not trying to take away from Catherine's world. I call her because even for me. So I'll admit, so I'm in marketing, right? I should know these things, right? I should know how to write and design and build a website. I'm a strategist. I am not a writer. I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not a web developer, but I did pick Wix platform because I need to manage it myself. I don't have a web developer. I'm not paying somebody to manage that for myself. So I needed a platform that I could manage and understand it myself. But I then sort of, with a pen and paper, drew out how I wanted my website to go, the flow, the website map, my purpose. And then I worked with people to help me write it. I took pictures of some team members and things like that. And then I had somebody build it in Wix for me because I'm not capable of doing that myself. But now I manage it. So now I make content updates. Now I make blog updates. Now I can add things myself. So that's the thinking I had to go through of being a small business owner is I need a website, but I need to manage it myself because I can't afford somebody else to do it, nor could I take the time to learn it myself. So that's the process I even had to go through.
Well, and it's all about deciding what resources you have to spend on things. You know, it's sometimes, to your point, Sarah, your resources are your time. It's not just financial dollars. And at the end of the day, I think Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, so many of them have become pretty sophisticated in allowing you to throw up decent websites. Again, if you're selling something online, that's probably a slightly different scenario. But for so many of those tools, you can really do a decent job. And where, you know, to Sarah's point, the technology was where she had to make the exception. She didn't make the exception when it came to identifying the brand, identifying the look and feel, making sure that the communication points were there, making sure the planning was all there. That's the part that, regardless of your budget, I mean, we can't emphasize enough, you can't skip that step. Then you get to decide what sort of technology and resources you have budget for, but you know that you're going into it with the best foot forward.
So I'm going to jump in here. Some things I've really taken away from your presentation and myths and questions that you addressed today is just, I think that you've probably, for many people, raised their comfort level, especially with what all the digital possibilities are. I think for a lot of people who are scared of digital marketing, it's because they don't know what it is. They experience it every day, but it's never been explained to them what it is. What is SEO? What does it mean when an ad pops up in Google? What is that? So thank you for explaining those. I think that is going to be super helpful to everyone who is here today or watches the recording. I have a broader question, which is, so from the SCORE Startup series, I think there's, and Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's been an emphasis on when you're putting together your business plan, how is your business different from your competitors? So my question for you two is, how do you get competitive advantage of a small business to come through in the marketing strategy?
Oh, I mean, it's challenging, but I think it goes back to, you know, assessing your competitors. So doing that competitive analysis, really looking at what's out there, where can they make bold statements? Are they the first in something? Are they the best in something? Are they the only in something? And then I think looking at how you compare to them. What's that unique advantage that you have? And then the other point is always making sure that whatever you're touting actually matters to your target audience. Because I think that's a mistake that we see often, is that a business owner will say, well, this matters a lot to me, and I'm really proud to hang my hat on the fact that I've won X award. But at the end of the day, the target audience doesn't care about that. It doesn't mean anything to them. So I think it's that combination of saying, okay, what is my uniqueness in the market after I've looked at all my competitors? What's the one thing they can't say, but I can say? And then does that one thing matter to my target audience at the end of the day? And then from there, I think it's simplifying your message. And if you're introducing somebody to your brand, don't try and say everything at once. I mean, we've seen so many ads, flyers where, you know, they've written paragraphs of text trying to get you to understand their business, when in reality, the customer just can't absorb that much information. So put out that one unique differentiating statement, and then slowly introduce them to your brand through other marketing touch points after that. But with that first introduction, whether that be an ad or a social media post or you know, a print ad, use that one differentiator to carry your brand, and then let them meet you slowly after that.
Yeah.
Can Can
Yeah,
I add
I would
an
say,
analogy to that?
how is,
Can I add an analogy to that?
Yeah.
One of the clients that I worked with in one of the meetings was going to open a restaurant in a community outside of Madison, a small community. And I asked her what was going to set her apart because she was going to market. And I just said, you're going to have to focus what sets you apart. And she said, well, we're going to serve beer and wine at my restaurant. And I went, there are 3 places in your community. One of them just opened up that all do that. I said, that's not any kind of focus whatsoever. I don't know why I would come to you before these other ones are already established. And she goes, well, we're different. I said, that's what I want to hear. How are you different? She finally came out and said, we want to be that restaurant that's your first date. I went, that's an experience that you have to create. And what I tried to get across to her was that everything she did had to create that. Not just the food that she served, the way she served it, but I said, I'm going to go back to, I want to come to your restaurant. So how are you going to advertise? That's got to be in there somehow, that feeling. So I think that's what I've heard you say over and over again, is that everything drives me back to the webpage. The social media should drive me back to the webpage. Your webpage is like the station for a train. The social media is the train, but it's going by so fast that if I don't have a station where I can either get on or get off, it's pointless.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would say 3 things, and it kind of goes along that is, don't assume and overlook the simple things. So for instance, we have a pharmacy in town, and I was working with them, and they're open a half hour later during the week, and they didn't even think to like market that or let people know that. If you have something simple as being open a half hour later to working families, that's a big deal, and that's something that you should be putting out there. So whether it's you want to be the date night, or you're open a half hour later, or point number 2, I was going to say, what is it that you want to own in sort of the experience? Do you want to be the clean restaurant? Do you want to have great customer service? Is there a pricing? Do you have different specials every day? So kind of think about where it is that you want to hang your hat on and own it. And a lot of times for small business owners, again, it goes back to, you can't do every marketing tactic there is. So if you are only comfortable with Facebook because that's free, and you can own it, then do creative things on Facebook and own that channel more than your competitors down the street, because then that's what's going to be talked about, is the experience you're creating on Facebook is going to lead me to want to come in and experience you in person. So, don't overlook the simple things. Don't assume things. Own some specific thing, like your clean customer service, free shipping, next day delivery, whatever little customer service point that you have, own it and shout it from the rooftop, but you have to make sure that you own it and follow through on it, right? Don't say we're the clean restaurant and then someone comes in and there's, it's not clean. You don't want that, but make sure that you can follow through on it, and then own whatever marketing channel. And when we say channel, we mean whether it be email marketing, whether it be direct mail, whether it be retargeting ads, whether it's social media, and it's specifically Facebook, whatever thing you feel most comfortable with in terms of investing your time financially and your time with, own it. That's the best competitive advantage you can have in small business world, is don't start something, a newsletter, unless you're going to see it through and maximize that tactic.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Any other questions the group of us can address right now? And if not, I think that we can wrap it up. Yeah. Sarah and Catherine, thank you so much. You've given us a lot to think about, a lot to think through. So yes, it was fabulous. Thank you for sharing your insights. And Ken, thank you for being here. And I think Bruce came on too as well. Hello, Bruce. Good morning. Just remember, if you've gone through some of the SCORE homework from from month 4 for sales and marketing, feel free to reach out to Bruce or Jean, who was with Bruce a couple weeks ago, or reach out to Ken, or reach out to your specific mentor if you have established a mentor relationship with SCORE. And we will be back for month 5, the first Tuesday of June. And I believe our topic is location as well as human resources, and possibly thinking about making that first hire for your small business. So thank you again, everybody. And at this point, we can stop the recording.